Welcome, students, to the lecture series on the subject financial services for that matter. Now, before we go deeper into the subject, let's try to have an introduction to the subject. Financial services. Now, why are we studying this subject? We got to understand why this subject, for whom this subject is all about, or what is its relevance in our daily lives, that we need to understand before in any kind of understanding of the subject. Now, if you see very closely, we have one chart over here which explains something of a connectedness between economy, economic system, and economic activities, and for that matter, finance and its role in the economy. Now, why are we studying these aspects in the subject financial services? Though the word that is more important and relevant over here is services, for that matter, why? What is economy, economic system, economic activities? We can understand the role of finance in the subject, but what are these three things they are doing here, right? These three things, what is its relevance? Let us try to understand from the perspective of economy, economic system, and economic activities. Now, what exactly do we mean to say by economic activities per se? Let's try to know what is an economy for that matter, right? What is an economy for that matter? Now, here if you see very closely, we have this beautiful definition that has been given by a person, by an economist for that matter, by an economist, Mr. Adam Smith, who was sharp enough, who was thorough enough. He gave a definition of what is an economy. See, an economy is the ecosystem. Ecosystem, the word important is ecosystem, and the largest set of interrelated production, distribution, and consumption activities. Right? If you see, production, distribution, and consumption activities for that matter, that aid, again, the key word over here is that aid in determining how scarce resources are allocated. If you remember this definition, we had talked about in our subject, managerial economics, right, in our first semester. What is this? Economics is a study of how scarce resources are allocated for the activities of production, distribution, and consumption. This is what we mean to say by economy as such. Now, if we understand the economy first, then we may move on to what is we mean to say by economic system. Economic system here was, economy was an ecosystem. Here economic system is a means. The word important is these, though these words appear to be simpler, they have a deeper meaning attached to it. Here it is ecosystem, and here we are talking about a means by which societies or government organize and distribute available resources, services, and goods across a geographic region or a country. Right? Here we are talking about an ecosystem wherein allocation of resources, right? In economy, resources are allocated, right? And here, these are used for, the processed resources are used for consumption, production, distribution, and consumption. This is what we mean to say by economic system. Now, economic system also involves utilization of the resources, namely land, capital, labor, and physical resources. This economic system also includes what? For distribution, production, distribution, and consumption, you need institutions, agencies, entities, decision-making process, and we need to know about the patterns of consumption. This is what is included. This is what is included in economic system. Economic system. This comprises of economic system. This is an ecosystem. Economics is an ecosystem, right? This being an ecosystem, and this being the methods or the means for that consumption. Here you are thinking of developing an ecosystem. An economic system is part of economy. Now moving further into our understanding of financial services. Now, what is economic activity? It's the activity of making, providing, purchasing, or selling of goods and services. Right? Here we are talked about ecosystem. Here we are talked about means. Right? And economic activities are those activities which are involved in production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Right? Here, things are allocated in economic activity. Economic system comprises of its usage, and here you're talking about actually making activities. Economic activity means making activities. Right? Making activities involved these three: production, distribution of goods and services, and consumption. Right? So, if we try to understand, if we want to understand rather, what are financial services, we need to understand this. So, hence, we are talking about the role of economy, again, coming back here, the role of the economy per se in our study of financial services. Now, I think these three aspects might be clear from the earlier slide that was shown to you. Now, to do all these things, like we were talking about, say, production, distribution, and consumption, right? Production, distribution, and consumption we were talking about, for that matter. So, if you really are talking about that, now this is what we mean to say by the economics or the role of finance in production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services for that matter. So it plays an important role in all of these processes. It's the lifeblood of, right? It's the lifeblood of any given organization or any given activity for that matter. If you see very closely, right, it has got a deeper role. Now, what are the roles that are being, let's take one by one for that matter. Finance is needed for purchase of goods and services. Without this, neither you can develop an ecosystem, neither you can have a means, neither you can have its usage. All these things, they come to null and void if we don't have what? If we don't have finance. So, to move the machine of economy running, to keep it running, you need finance, which is essential for purchase of goods and services. It is also the lifeblood of industry. Now, how? Whatever economic activities, what are these economic activities? Economic activities are production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Remember these three important words. Don't take this out of your system. Production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. To do this, to carry out these activities, you need to have raw material, you need to pay for labor, you need to pay for the utilities. For all these, what is needed is finance. Finance, in other terms, may be called as finance, would be referred to sometimes largely as money. So, in simpler terms, money is needed to run the industry. So, hence, and that is what? That is predominantly the lifeblood. In our body, without blood, we cannot even have sensation with respect to our sensory organs. So, this being such an important role finance plays, right? Finance plays an important role to the extent that it is the lifeblood. Now, finance is also, this is also scarce. It is not available in plenty, or it is not available when needed the most. This is the general experience or the experience of most of the people, that it is not available when it is needed the most, right? It is first, it is scarce, and it is not available when it is needed the most. Hence, what do you need to make? You need to make the optimal utilization of the money per se, of the inputs that are involved in PDC, that is production, distribution, and consumption. All the available resources, whatever we are talking about, we are talking in terms of resources. Now, finance has a role also. It acts as a link between savers and investors, right? We see that we have largely an ecosystem wherein people are willing to save, right? They save with an intention so that their money's value remains same, right? Remains same over a period of time. This is what we had studied in TVM, time value of money, right? So, how do you maintain that value same? How do you keep the value of money same? By keeping it, it is possible by keeping it invested, right? So, it is possible to keep the value of money same by when you keep it invested. So, finance or money's role is to move the money from savers to investors, right? From savers to investors. It acts as a link between these two people or between these two group of people. Finance is also needed for making further investments. Any company for that matter, if it wants to start, acquire, merge, or progress in its life cycle, it needs money, right? It needs money or finance to go ahead. This we are very well aware of. So to speak, without finance, you cannot move this single dot also from here to here, right? It also requires money. Even if I'm trying to put in one dot over here and the other is only because I've invested my money in having this iPad and that is making things move. It is very well said that money makes, if you might have heard, money makes the world move. This you might have heard, this word you might have come across. So, without money, you cannot invest. Money is, if it is not there, investments are not possible. And further also, it helps in capital formation, right? Capital is formed by, or for that matter, capital always comes in the form of money or finance, right? Now, what does this lead to? This leads to, if you see, this leads to economic development. Now, going back again to what do you mean by economic development per se? Let's come back here. Let's go down and see what is economic development over here, right? Economic development, the word important. It ideally refers to sustained, concerted actions of communities and policymakers that improve what? That improve the standard of living, development of human capital, increasing the literacy ratio, improvements in infrastructure, health, safety, and other areas that aim at increasing the general welfare of citizens, right? Now, when you use the word welfare, right, this has come from the word, it simply means fare well, right? Fare well means do better, right? This, see, there's a gap between these two words. I'm not using the word which we generally use for this, fare well, right? This is different. A slight gap between these two words means a lot. So, any efforts that are aimed at making the life better. Do what? Do what? Make the life better. How do you make life better? By improving the standard of living, human capital, that is optimum utilization of human resources, increasing the literacy ratio, educated versus the non-educated, improvements in infrastructure, road, railways, airports, all the connectivities, health, general health, safety, right? If we see if everything of these, if it is going up, if it is going up, it is increasing, if it is increasing, then we can call it as economic development, right? Don't confuse this word with economic growth. They are different. They are different as chalk and cheese. This is not that we mean to say by economic development. This is not economic development. Economic growth is different. Economic development is different, right? For example, if I really want to give you a better example of that, growth means how what has been the increase in the weight of the child, say between 4 to 10 years, is growth, right? Weight. Now, because of this weight, what is he able to do is development, right? Growth always refers to capabilities. Development refers to the abilities. What is the difference? That we'll try to see in some other lectures later on. Now, coming back to the original lecture, I hope now by this time you might be very clear about what is economic development per se. Now, this whole development for that matter, is facilitated. Now, what is the important word here? Facilitated by financial system. Here we are coming to the actual, slowly moving into the actual lecture of financial services. So this whole thing, economic development, is facilitated by financial system. Now, what is financial system? Financial system is a network of regulated. Note the word that is more important over here is regulated institutions for enabling, right? For enabling practices used to facilitate exchange of funds. Now, here you'll try to understand the connectivity between economy, e-system, that is economic system, economic activities. What is economy? This is an ecosystem. These are means and these are methods of achieving that we had studied so far. Now, to run this, what is needed? This is needed, finance. Now, where does the finance come from? Finance comes from financial system. Now, why financial system? To do everything, that is, this finance, what is needed is finance. Now, what does that mean? This means movement of money from savers to investors, right? Now, where do the investors get from? They get from savers. And where do the savers put their money? They put their money in investments. So it's a win-win situation for both. So this is what we call it as. This is what we call it as exchange of funds. So that is how it is linked, and that was the reason why we had talked earlier about economic system, economic activities, finance in the earlier graph that we had seen. And this all leads to, when you have this network, see, it's a network of regulated by whom? Regulated by government agencies that we'll come across. Government agencies like RBI, right? If it is stock market, that is governed by SEBI. It is also governed by RBI, SEBI, pension fund authorities, right? These are what? These are institutions, banking institutions, for that matter. So this whole thing is a network, right? And all this network is developed for simple reason is exchange of funds. Exchange of funds. Now what happens if the money is not moving? If the money is not moving, its value will erode over a period of time. Erode means it will come down. Value, by mean to say 100 rupees, if they are not invested, they may lose its value, and ultimately 100 rupees may not be worth 100 1 year after, right? So to keep this same, to keep this perspective same, to keep the money's value same, it needs to be exchanged. Exchange means it is exchanged, money is exchanged with a purpose. What is the purpose? To keep its value same, to keep its value same, for that matter, same. So hence we try to move money from where it is being saved to it is being invested, and everything is carried out through a financial system. Now what is its significance? Let's try to see its significance. Now what is the significance of financial system, for that matter? How does it influence? Right? On the macro variables of economy. Now, what are the macro variables? Again, it will be shared with you in the essential readings. What is macro variables? If you want to see, let's try to see what are macro variables, for that matter. Right? Now, what are macro variables? If you see very closely, macro variables are associated with economic aggregates. Aggregates, you might be very well aware of the word aggregates. Aggregates of what? Aggregates you can also call as averages, right? Of a country, region, the population, or all companies in a country. For example, if you want to calculate the production of goods and services in a country, what do you need to do? You need to calculate the production of all its businesses, families, individuals, and its public sector. When you calculate this, then you get the production of goods and services in terms of, say, quantity, that is, how much is produced, right? And also in terms of its value, that is, what is its worth. We always come across these figures in the newspaper that the company, the India has produced so many lakhs of passenger cars. That is, it is declared in terms of quantity. When you say so much worth of production is being carried out, say what is the worth of that production that has been done by the country of passenger vehicles in a year, it is calculated in terms of worth. So the economic aggregates that are related in the calculation of economics is studied in as macro variables. There are other variables also, this being the sum, right? Now the other variables are, in doing so, what has been the inflation, how much this production of goods and services has contributed to GDP, how much the government is spending, that is on infrastructure, how much has, what are the interest rates, what are the exchange rates, and what is the rate of unemployment. These are what? These are called as macro variables. Macro, broader variables that affect our daily lives. If you see any of the macro variable, production of goods and services, if it is rising, means there is employment. If people are having greater employment, that means per capita income is rising. Per capita income is nothing but the money that is available with the people for spending. Inflation is also affected. If people are spending more, the interest rates may firm up, may go up. There is lesser employment, lesser unemployment, right? So everything, these are associated with what? With our daily life. So they have a greater impact, and because of the changes that happen in the macro variables, we take decisions accordingly, right? So decisions about what? Decisions about the scarce resource, that is the money which we are having at our disposal. Either we save or either we spend. When the economy is moving, people spend. When the economy goes into recession, people save. And that saved money again comes back into the economy, moves things further, right? And when things move further, people's standard of living rises, people's per capita income rises, and there's a development in infrastructure, there's development in health, there's development in safety, and generally it increases the welfare of the people. This is how it is connected. It is called as economic cycle, right? This word you might have heard across. So now why we are talking about this thing is only because it influences, financial system influences macroeconomic variables. How does it influence? Like we have seen, financial system helps in mobilization of savings, capital formation, investments are escalated. Like escalation means what? People are prompted to invest. When are people prompted to invest? When the economy is booming, right? It is booming. So if you see very closely, when the economy is booming, right? If it is going up, then and then only people will invest. That is what we mean to say by escalation of investment. Diversification of risk, right? Because of the change in the economy, changes in the economy, people don't invest in only one asset class. And that is, they will not invest only in gold, they will not invest only in shares, not only investing only in land, depending upon the phases of business cycles, right? You might have come across this word in managerial economics, the phases of business cycles. These are what? Business cycles phases. Depending upon that, will either invest in land, people will either invest in gold, shares, or some other form of investments only because they want to diversify, they want to have a bigger basket of investments. Now, if we have a sound financial system, right, it will lead to rise in GDP, more money flowing into the economy. More money flowing into the economy means more production, more distribution, and people are prompted because there is money, ample amount of money in the hands of people. They will spend, and when people spend, my dear friends, GDP rises. Right? Maintenance of balance. Now, I think we had studied this economic development, how it leads, so I'll not discuss into that. Now, how does this maintenance of balance have a role? Now, what do you mean by that? This also I think we had studied. That is, it is movement of money. This means movement of money between savers and investors. The money keeps on moving from savers to investors. Money is not. See what happens if we have. If only people are saving. If only people are saving, deposits will go up. When deposits go up, interest on deposits they come down. Right? Now, if the interest come down, savings will come down. Now, what will happen in that case? People are saving because they want to maintain the value of money. Same, right, over a period of time. Now, if people don't save, that means they don't put their money into deposits. So that why do people save? People save money because they want to keep the value of money same through interest, through earning interest. If people don't save, the money will not flow. It will not flow into the economy. If money does not move, if the money does not move, more and more money gets stuck, right, in the hands of people. Money lying idle loses its value. So to put the money to productive use, money should move from savers to investors. And when it is moving, right, the rate at which it is moving and the frequency at which it is moving decides economic development, right? It leads to economic development. The rate at which it is growing, say more and more savers, more and more people are saving money so that the money gets invested, that is what we call it as growth. And growth ultimately leads to development. Other contributions, right? Other contributions of financial system are financial system comprises of financial institutions, financial markets, financial instruments, financial regulators, and financial services. This is what this system, economic system that we are talking, is an ecosystem of this, right? Now, financial system also has financial institutions where people will go and save, people will go and get the money for investments, right? So this is one of the other contributions. It also, financial systems also include not only banks, it also includes pension funding agencies or insurance agencies, insurance companies for that matter, insurance institutions for that matter, wherein people will buy insurance so that there is security. So financial system also contributes to moving money. Again, that is what, put it simply, whatever we are trying to do is we are trying to mobilize the movement of money. Put it simply, financial system, it mobilizes the movement of money from those who have in ample quantity to those people who need it the most. This is what the role of financial system is. And of course, it is whole movement of money is not unregulated. It is regulated by the regulators, right? So this is what we mean to say by the significance. This is what the significance of financial system is. Now, how do you function? How does the financial system function? Systems don't function on their own. They need to have certain mechanism, certain structure wherein they can function. Now, how does it help? The role of financial system, like we have been talking about, is economic stabilization. This is also what we call it as development. Economy being stable means what? People have more faith. The word important is here is stabilization. If economy is stable, more and more people would put money or liquid assets into where? Into the economy. And more money coming into the economy means what? More production, more distribution, and more consumption. And if these three are moving in tandem, that leads to what? That leads to development. Everything is connected, everything is interconnected. So this is one of the functions of financial system. It reduces risk, right? Holding money loses its value. If you have a system, you invest the money value goes up, and it helps you in better management of the money. Now, financial system also assists in conversion of assets into cash, right? Say for example, if you are having deposits in the bank, if you are making investments, they can be easily converted into cash through financial system. Transfer mechanism, again, movement of money from savers to investors, or from investors to, if people are in, money is getting invested, more and money is coming back into the economy, more and more people are having employment, and that again will lead to savings. So it helps in better transfer of funds. So it's a mechanism. It's a mechanism for transfer of funds. Assistance in implementation of government policy. Whatever policy, say for example, if the government tomorrow says that we need to promote employment, employment should go up. How does it come? Employment comes through a financial system. Now, how does financial system help? You might have heard about the scheme called as Manarega, right? Now, what is this? This is a system, this is a scheme wherein people are provided minimum livelihood through employment. Through what? Through employment. Now, how does the government send money? Government sends money through direct benefit transfer. You might have heard about the scheme Jana Dhan Yojana. That is, the beneficiary gets the money directly into his bank account. This is one of the government policy. So financial system helps in implementation of government policy. Financial system also helps in proper selection of portfolio. Portfolio, you might have understood, it's a bouquet of investments, right? It's a bouquet of investments. That is what we call it as portfolio. Portfolio can be in the form of, say, either shares, mutual funds, debentures, or deposits in the bank, or gold you might have taken. That's what we call it as portfolio. Financial system helps you in proper selection, ideal selection based on the two factors, that is risk and the returns. So this risk and returns calculation is being done by whom? By financial system. Improvement in payment mechanism, like we are nowadays making payments, right? Online payments, that is possible only because of financial system. Now, if these all things, if they are running smoothly, say for example, economy is stable, right? Risks are reduced, assistance in conversion of cash, transfer mechanism is sound, government policy is being properly put into place, implemented, selection of portfolio is proper, transfer mechanism, payment mechanism is okay. What does it all lead to? This all leads to standard of living. Now, what does standard of living means? Standard of living means your consumption has increased. Consumption of what? Consumption of goods and services has increased. Now see how beautifully this plays its role in the economy. If consumption increasing means distribution will definitely go up. Now if these both are increasing, production goes up. Now if these three things, if they are rising, ultimately more people will be employed. More people, if they're employed, their incomes may go up. Since their incomes are going up, people will save. Since people are saving, there will be easy availability of capital formation. And if capital is formed, industries will have money. Again, this all things is coming to what? It is coming to economic stabilization. Everything is interconnected. So, this is what we mean to say by the functions of financial system. Now, to run this whole show, we need to look into what are the components of financial system. Like I told you, financial institution, it comprises of financial institutions, financial services, financial regulators, financial instruments, and financial markets and financial services. Now, what exactly are these? Let us try to see in the PDF that has been shared with you, right? That has been shared with you. For example, the components of financial system. Here we are talking about the components of financial system. Now here, see, this is what we had talked about. Financial system comprises of institutions, regulators, financial market, financial instruments, and financial services. Now, financial institutions, they are categorized on the financial intermediary, financial non-intermediary, others. Intermediaries are in the form of banking, non-banking financial institutions, that is NBFCs, we say that, right? Now, regulators, what are the regulators that we'll see? Everything is there in the PDF. Financial markets, they are classified on the basis of nature, primary markets, secondary markets, on the basis of maturity period, how long you are putting your money to be invested. Either you're putting your money to be invested in money market or capital markets, right? So money markets comprise of bonds, capital markets comprise of shares, right? So depending upon the maturity period. And financial instruments are classified again on the basis of the period of investments, that is short term, medium term, and long term. Financial services more predominantly will be concerned with this aspect, right? Fund based, fee based, right? Or say asset based or fee based. Financial services, either they are offered in the form of assets or in the form of fees. That is what we need to study. So these are the components of financial system. Now, if you see very closely, everything has been included for your reference. For your reference in the PDF. This will be shared as a part of your essential readings. See, financial institutions are there, right? Financial institutions, for that matter. They are there. Financial markets, that is being shared with you. So financial institutions, financial markets, financial instruments, financial services, financial regulators, and these all have been sourced from the book, namely Indian Financial System, second edition, Sujatra Bhattacharya, Oxford University Press. So this is what was intended of having a brief understanding about the subject which we have talked as financial system, right? And this is what we talked about the subject, financial services. Sorry, right? So to understand the essence, what comprises of financial services, this was the first lecture that was being shared with you. What will come later will be having a better understanding of the subject. To start with, this is the introductory lecture for your kind consideration. That's all for now. Thank you.